let's discuss our tweaking of step 1 for reasoning questions. So, first of all, as you know from the previous session, for other types of reading comprehension, you're reading for topic, scope, and purpose. Here you're reading for evidence, conclusion, and assumption. So, let's discuss the parts of an argument. Because what does a reasoning question really get at? It gets at an argument. There are 2 types of reasoning questions. You have strengthened questions and weakened questions. How to strengthen the author's argument and how to weaken the author's argument. And by the way, the skills that we're reviewing now are needed for the argument essay as well. They're 2 sides of the same coin. So this is not the only time you're going to be dealing with evidence, conclusion, and assumption in this session. And it's not by accident that we put it together. It's the same skills. Breaking down an argument into its key points is not only needed for reasoning questions and reading comprehension, but it's needed for the argument essay as well. So let's get into the parts of an argument. There are 3 parts to every argument. You have, let's write it out a little more completely now. You have the evidence that the argument is based, that the conclusion is based on. So every argument has a conclusion. That essentially is the thesis of the argument. What the argument's conclusion is, what the argument is if you'll forgive the circular definition there, what the argument is saying. Again, the thesis of the argument. That conclusion is based upon evidence that is provided. Now, both the conclusion and the evidence are stated. If you want to attack an argument, don't attack the evidence first of all. Every single one of us has been, like in a social situation in which you have 2 guys who are arguing over something, for like some data, or for like an hour. Yes, Roger Maris had 162 games. No, it was 154 games. Not 100. Now, okay, with the advent of Google, it's not quite as bad as it used to be. But it goes on and back and forth. And that you don't argue with the evidence. The evidence is what it is. The evidence you take at face value. Now you could potentially attack the conclusion, but the weakest part of the argument is that which is unstated, and it's unstated for a reason because it's not supported. It's not supported at all. The weakest part of every argument is the assumption or assumptions that the argument makes. The assumption or assumptions that the argument makes is the bridge between the evidence and the conclusion. It's how you go from E to C. And whether or not they realize it, what lawyers in court are really doing is attacking each other's assumptions. And politicians also, by the way. They don't even realize it. When they're going after each other, debating endlessly, what are they doing? They are attacking each other's assumptions. So let's do a couple of examples, because this is all pie in the sky until you actually see a concrete example. Everyone has this down? Because I'm going to flip it.